rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Our first item is number 4. I just want to say before because we have a number of contracts coming up, and I just want to say for the record, Attorney Baldwin, can you confirm that we worked together and that you reviewed all the contracts before we place them on the agenda?
Yes, I can. There is one in particular that I'm fine with in terms of its general terms, but we do need to work on some detailed changes. But I don't think there's any reason to hold up your approval, subject to the town attorney's, they meet the town attorney's satisfaction.
Okay.
Which contract is that, Jim?
That's the beta contract about the paving, the road paving system.
Okay. So item number 4 is purchasing authority, and can I get a?
Should we approve the minutes first, and then I was going to make a motion to waive?
I'm so sorry. Yes. Yep. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of April 19th, 2021?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay.
Any discussion?
No, not for me.
All in favor?
Aye. I'd like to make a motion to waive the readings of items 4 through 9, and I stop at 9 because I did know that there was someone who wanted to make a comment on 10. So
yes.
I'm going to make a motion to waive the readings for items 4 through 9.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Nancy.
Okay.
All right, so we have Gerald Foley and Anthony Calabrese here to discuss this item. I'll hand it over to you, gentlemen.
Gerald, do you want me to, or do you want to take it? All right, I'll take it.
Thank you, Anthony.
So this is a contract for 2 years with our indoor tennis center. This is the summer lease. As you guys know, they have a long-term lease for the month outside of the summer, a 20-year lease. And the last several years since they rebuilt that facility down there, we've been contracting with them every 2 years for each summer. So the respective rent is $30,000 for this summer and $31,000 for next summer.
If I might, I had a question. What are they paying? What did they pay the last couple of summers? Like, I'm unable to pull up the documents right now. It's giving me my computer's giving me a security breach or warning. But what did they pay in the last few summers for this?
The last 2 summers it was $30,000 and $30,000.
And they paid $30,000 last summer, even during COVID.
The contract was for $30,000. I believe it was reduced down to $23,000 due to loss of business. But yes, contract.
Okay. Who agreed to? And I'm not. This is a process question, not a reasonableness question. How did that get reduced last year? Who agreed to that? Who voted on that? Anybody?
That would have been done through finance, the finance department, with in conjunction with purchasing and my department.
So, but that didn't come before us.
No, not that I remember.
Attorney Baldwin, real quick, should it have? Hello, Attorney Baldwin?
Yeah, sorry, I'm here. I'm trying to wrap my head around the circumstance, but we had a lot of COVID-related adjustments to leases with the town, and that was one of them. And I believe it fell under the auspices of the first Selectwoman's emergency powers in granting the relief that she did to so many tenants of the town.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that. I didn't know. I mean, I don't disagree that it was extenuating circumstances and that relief was justified. I just didn't know the appropriate process to be followed there or how that was documented. That's all.
And I do believe that there was discussion among the board, and it was brought to the attention of the board by the first selectwoman that was being done in many instances. But I don't recall exactly offhand when that took place.
Right. Right. Do we have a listing of all those ones that where it did take place?
I'm sure that we could produce that list. I would venture to guess that it's a majority of the town leases with any.
Yeah, I think that'd be good to have. Just the federal money we're going to be going for. It'd be good to have kind of a loss of business summary document to know where we lost lease opportunities and use that. See if that can't be applied towards some of those funds from the federal government. That's all.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and I can assure you that the finance department is on that, as well as other aspects of COVID-related losses, costs. Absolutely.
So if we could get a report back on what that is, I'd greatly appreciate that. If someone from finance, maybe at a future meeting, can come back to us and say all the lost revenue, that'd be very helpful as we go forward. So thank you. I have no problem with this item.
Nancy, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right, if there's no further questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 5, we have again Gerald Foley, and I don't know if the chief is on. Chief Calamaris, is he on this?
No, I think
okay.
he was.
Okay, Jennifer wrote that, but I do have Mr. Marsilio actually in my office. If there's any questions, we can direct him to him. But Gerald, do you want to?
Yeah. So
kick this off?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, of course.
Okay. My apologies. I didn't realize I was muted before, so I was trying to help Anthony. But anyway.
No, you're fine.
So this particular project, this is for hiring the company, it's a company, Silver Petroselli, for design of a new rooftop HVAC unit for the police department. What the town did is we utilized our on-call services, and we dispatched Silver Petroselli out to the police station facility. And this actually goes back, it's almost a year ago, back to July of last year, to investigate a problem we were having at the police station facility. And over a series of what it turned out to be months, we determined that there was something wrong with the unit that was not necessarily could be repaired, but in essence had to be replaced. So in conjunction with Public Works, we went for additional funding. And so what you have before you is basically to replace that unit. But it started off as we originally thought we could just repair it, but it turned out that the particular unit on that rooftop was in much worse shape than we thought it was. So hence we went through the capital process to actually get funding to replace the unit. So because we were utilizing Silver Petroselli from the very beginning, we thought that it would be best to utilize them to stay with them because they were most familiar with the project, and in turn engage them to provide a full design and to assist the town in actually preparing the specs and actually going out to bid so that we could get this unit replaced in an expeditious manner.
Thank you, Gerald. Are there any questions? Anyone?
Just go ahead, Nancy. Do you have something?
No.
No. Gerald, I'm getting a little concerned. As I recall, our last meeting, we had a couple other things that went to Silver Petroselli, and it was, and you quoted the same kind of provision. Well, they're on the on-call list and all that, and I know they've done work for us before, and this isn't to cast any aspersions towards them, but I'm getting a little concerned that this is becoming too frequent an issue here for me.
Right. So Mr. Flynn, what we are doing is right now I think I mentioned this previously, we only have 3 firms on that list. And of the three firms that we've utilized, we had one company's Antonazzi Associates. We had not used them for anything. We've now recently just engaged them for one project. The other company is a company called Chris Williams Associates, was out of New Haven. We've utilized them, and we haven't used them for another project. So unfortunately, we only have this last company. So to your point, we are looking to expand this list, and as other projects come up, expand it so we're getting more competition for these particular projects.
Or go out to a bid process like we're supposed to
Right.
do, as opposed to just having this listing. It's just becoming a little bit too much for my liking. And again, that's no I'm not trying to disparage Silver Petroselli or say they wouldn't win anyway, but it's just we need to follow the process here.
Right. Understood.
For this one, given the fact pattern as you laid out, I don't have a problem with it, but I just want to register that I'm getting a little concerned.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just add that I think what you just said, Tom, is right on. So I just wanted to echo and support that.
Thank you.
Is there anything more?
No, I'm good. Oh, one other item I'd like to note, whoever did this in the agendas, as per our comments for the last meeting, of not just putting the account numbers, but actually putting the name of the accounts. I want to express my appreciation for that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, if there's no further questions, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. And the next item, and I do want to just be cognizant because we do have the strategic plan committee here, and I know there's going to be probably a good amount of questions there, and we are going to stop at 5. So I just want to make sure we're being efficient with our time. The next item is 6. We have, again, Gerald Foley, and I have John Marsilio here in my office if there are any questions. And Gerald, would you like to open it up?
Okay, so this one here is for, are we on item 7? Is that correct?
No, we're on
6.
6.
I'm sorry, I'm 6. I'm sorry, I skipped. Yeah, so what we have here, this item was brought before your group 2 weeks ago, and unfortunately what had happened at the time was the contractor that we were looking to engage had not provided the town with an agreement for the town attorney to review in an expeditious manner. So we're again bringing it back to you. But what we did is we went out for an RFP to basically enter into an agreement with a company. In this case, it's going to be Beta Group, to implement a pavement management system for all of the town roads. So what we were looking to do is to hire the Beta Group to go out and physically assess all of the town roads. So they'll do the roads, and they're going to do the sidewalks, and then they're going to come back to the town with basically an assessment of all of the roads plus the sidewalks, and kind of rate each of them. It's basically a point type scale, so that we'll have a better understanding of the condition of all the roads and all the sidewalks, and be able to put a plan in place so that we can repair those items as needed most prudently, and kind of work our way down the list.
Thank you, Gerald. Are there any questions?
Welcome.
Nope, none for me.
Nope.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gerald. All in favor?
Welcome.
Aye.
Aye.
Madam First Selectwoman,
Yes.
Can you just stipulate that it's subject to the town attorney's, that the terms are accessible to the town attorney, because we're technically still negotiating and
Okay, is this
fine-tuning
one you were
the
speaking of earlier? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we're accepting this. The vote is approving it on approval of the town attorney.
Why don't we, I'll make a motion to amend the item to include the language that we're voting on it, subject to the approval of the town attorney on specific details in the contract.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Item number 7. Thank you, Mr. Marsilio. Have a good evening or good afternoon. Did we have Gerald Foley again? Gerald, you're very popular today. And our Economic Development Director, Mark Barnhart. Mark, do you want to?
Yeah, I can take this to give Gerald
Okay,
a
very good.
So as the board remembers, you tasked the Affordable Housing Committee with updating the town's affordable housing plan, which was last done in 2014 in accordance with state statute requirements. We have to complete an update by June 2022. We did put out a request for qualifications proposals. We received the responses and we're recommending Planometrics, which is the firm that we used in 2014. Has a good reputation and works well with our both the Affordable Housing Committee and Planning and Zoning Commission, with funding to come from both the Housing Trust Fund and the Community Development Block Grant Program, not to exceed $24,000.
And they'll report into you?
The actual he will be. I'm administering it from the staff perspective, but he'll be working for the Affordable Housing Committee.
But you sort of will keep them on task and just
Yes.
administratively, but ultimately they'll present their findings to the Affordable Housing.
And then to you, to the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Yeah.
So Mark, couple things here. The funding for this is coming from their own trust fund, number one, as well as the CDBG grant. Is that grant already been granted? We have that?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And I know there's a lot going up at the State House right now on affordable housing and zoning. Will this plan be updated to make sure it takes into account whatever's going on at that point in time? I just want to make sure.
Yes, we'll be cognizant of any development taking place at the state level.
And that should be done by when, June? And when does this? I mean, unless it gets held over, I mean, obviously.
Our plan is to have a report to you sometime after the beginning of next year.
Right. So it's going to give you more than enough time to take into account whatever the town does or whatever the state does by June.
Correct.
If it does anything. Got it. Thank you.
And we're about to hear from the Strategic Planning Committee. I'm just curious how much of this is going to kind of work through with, are the Strategic Plan Committee and this process talking to each other, or?
I think
What's
the
the
strategic
plan?
and John can certainly speak to that. That's the overarching strategic plan initiative on the part of the town. This is far more detailed and delves specifically into affordable housing issues and how we might better meet the housing needs of not only our current resident base, but future residents here. It will dovetail into the plan of conservation development. So we're working closely with TP&Z where the housing related goals get folded into the POCD update.
Yeah, and I look forward to hearing from Mr. Nguyen, but I guess my point is one of, it's not really a question and more of I just want to make sure that the right hand, the left hand, we're all talking to each other, conservation, strategic plan, affordable housing, because that's going to be our best way forward when we're not working, in silos, which we've talked a lot about over the years. So we have an opportunity here to really think strategically about how all of this plays into each other.
Right. One of the first things we did was make sure that Glenn Charter Planometrics was cognizant of the work that's already been done, including other plans that have been developed thus far, so including the strategic plan.
And, there's an opportunity long-term as well to, this of course talks about equity. So I would just, again, right hand, left hand, all making sure that all these various threads are
relating, Nancy, relating to that, we did review as part of the strategic planning work early on, pretty much all the documents and plans that existed here in town. Affordable housing one was one of the ones that we did, I guess the 2014 plan. We also interviewed members of the Affordable Housing Committee. As far as the update that Mark is describing being incorporated into the existing strategic plan that we will speak about later, that would be an action that would have to happen in the future as Mark's plan comes together and the town takes further steps on implementing the strategic plan that's been documented.
Okay, thank you. And I look forward to hearing your report later. I know no one has done their homework more than you, so I look forward to hearing from you.
Is there any further discussion?
No.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Passes unanimously.
Good.
Good job, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, our next item is 8, and it's Gerald Foley and our IT director, Dave Kelly. Is Dave coming on, Gerald, or?
He's on.
I'm not sure. I think he's there somewhere. Yep,
He's here.
there. Hey, Dave.
Want me to take it, Gerald?
Yes, please.
Okay. Both items 8 and 9 are actually kind of part of the same thing.
Perfect.
We went
Let's
out.
do that.
Yeah, we went out to RFP this year because we go out every 5 years to renew services to provide the network interconnectivity between among the 20-ish town sites, the firehouses, the training school, the water treatment, public works, so on and so forth. The item number 8 is for the managed services part of that agreement, and that's for 5 years. And item number 9 is for the leasing of the fiber optic lines and whatnot out on the streets that connect our sites together. Our network vendor leases those from a third party to us. The RFP was for a 5-year agreement, but we did ask that they quote us a 2-year minimum commitment on the fiber optic lines because we're examining other ways to possibly lower our costs in the future and wanted to have some flexibility. I'm sorry, Tom, are you muted?
Are there any questions?
I'm sorry. Yeah, this is going for the 2 years, right? With optional extension periods to give you that flexibility.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. We're just committing to a shorter leasing arrangement with a third-party fiber optic provider.
Yeah, with doing with the comments in there, private dark fiber being the name, I was thinking, what are we doing? Espionage here?
No. This is just by dark fiber, they mean it's fiber that only the town uses. We're not sharing with Frontier or Optimum or anyone else. It's up there for us.
How does this compare to what we're paying about now?
The next 5 years are roughly $60,000 less expensive than our past 5 years because
things are coming down.
I've made some changes to the network design.
Okay.
Right size some connections.
And as you said, you've got 2 years here, 3 years to explore. Rather, 2 years to explore other opportunities to additionally lower our costs.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. I've got no other questions on these 2 items.
Yeah, I'm good too.
Okay, thank you. All right, so no further questions. And we have a motion, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
And I think we have to do number 9 as well, Bren?
Yes, that's right. Item number 9, and because it was discussed, can I get a motion on that item?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. And thank you, Mr. Foley. I think, Mr. Foley, that is, that's it for you. But look at you.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I know you have a pile of work on your desk, though.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gerald. Item number 10 is Affordable Housing Committee and Community and Economic Development Director. This is going to be also referred to TP&Z and RTM for their approval.
Oh, sorry, I can waive the reading of this. I'll make a motion to waive the reading. I just wanted to make sure it got the discussion
Gotcha.
that it needed. So I move to waive the reading.
So moved. So seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we, Mark, if you would like to kick off, and I believe Cindy is on the line as well.
Correct. Yes. So good afternoon again. Mark Barnhart, Director of Community Economic Development. I guess I should have introduced myself earlier. So this items 10 and 11 are related. This is a continuation of the program that we embarked on back in the fall when we purchased 350 Quincy Street. with funds from the Housing Trust Fund. With me is Cindy Samarco, as the Vice Chair of the Affordable Housing Committee, which considered this matter at their meeting in April and voted unanimously to refer it to you for your consideration and action. What we're attempting to do now is purchase additional properties. As you know, this is a deed restricted affordable home ownership development called Parkview Commons. It was acquired from the U.S. government back in 2004 and subdivided into individual lots subject to restrictive covenants to keep them affordable. There is an option in each of the purchase agreements or the restrictive covenants that allow the town to repurchase them at our option. We would propose to repurchase 362, 385, and 409 Quincy Street. You have the binders as well as the appraisals in your report. We are proposing to, the goal we had discussed back in the fall is to work with willing homeowners, purchase and assemble multiple lots to allow for the eventual redevelopment of this site. To address not only flood compliance issues, but to preserve existing affordable homeownership and increase the number of affordable homeownership units as we can. So our plan remains to identify a development partner to work with in the next 6 months. Tear down the existing units at some point once we have a plan in place and permits with planning and zoning, and replace with new duplex or triplex units at the proper flood elevation. So this is in the acquisition mode. Again, the financing is to be covered through the Housing Trust Fund. We're proposing to issue a bond, actually a short-term bond anticipation notes, the cost of which would be covered through the Housing Trust Fund. The Housing Trust Fund currently has a balance of over $670,000, which does not include the monies that we previously expended for the purchase of 350 Quincy Street. The principal on the note would eventually be repaid from the proceeds of the sale of the properties upon redevelopment. And I'm happy to take any questions that you have. I'm sure that you have questions this time, and I know bond counsel's here to address issues with regard to.
Yeah, and I want to thank you for reaching out in advance of this meeting to answer some of the questions, but I'm curious what the difference in why it's broken out with 10 and 11. Just if you could explain the two different, I'm just not understanding.
Yes.
The language of why it's
11 is the financing piece, which will have to go to the Board of Finance for its approval. The actual acquisition of the parcels and the use of the Housing Trust Fund for that purpose is subject to the approval of this board. The acquisition of the property is also subject to a referral to the Planning and Zoning Commission under 824, the general statutes, as well as the approval of the RTM, which will also have to approve the financing piece. So
it's procedural. It's all kind of
just to deal with the Board of Finance aspect.
Okay. So that, but it's procedure. It's all the same. There's
It
nothing
is all
hidden
the
in
same.
one. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mark. Go ahead, Nancy.
You can go ahead because I'm just reading something again. I may not need this answered.
Got it. So, Mark, first of all, I echo Nancy's comments. You and I had the opportunity to go offline and get a bunch of stuff answered on this, so thank you. I mean, the bottom line here, right, is this area has been priced out of quote unquote affordability due to the how these properties had been built and the fact that they now require flood insurance, right?
They've always required flood insurance, but post Sandy, the cost of flood insurance is going up, and
Fair
the
point.
homeowners themselves can't rectify it because they can't afford to elevate the property with restrictive covenants in place.
So the goal here is to basically reacquire these properties, tear them down, partner with the developer, have the developer build them, extend as well as expand our affordable housing availability in that area, and sell the property back.
Correct. Yes, you've
right.
got it. With resale restrictions in place, yes.
Right, and this is a continuation of a plan that we had approved in the fall. My hope is that we'll get an update You said 6 months. Is that the timeline? And we can get another update in 6 months on where this overall project
I think
stands?
the likelihood is you'll probably get an update sooner than that because I'm working with up to two other properties that be added to the list. The financing is sufficient to cover the acquisition of 2 additional properties, which we are in discussions with those homeowners, but I didn't want to hold up on the other 3. So I'll probably come back to you with that. And then beyond that, we'll be going through the process of identifying, going through an RFQ, RFP to identify a development partner, and the development agreement will again be something that we want to have you take a look at. Through.
And the development, thank you for bringing that up. On that score, I know we don't have an agreement in place, but you've already have interest that's been expressed by developers in partnering on this item, on these items?
Yeah, the last time we went through this, we had 5 respondents. I've talked to a number of those same companies again, and they are interested in partnering with us. So I do expect there to be interest when we put the RFQ out.
So it's not, we don't perceive there to be a risk that this isn't going to happen and we're going to end up owning these properties?
Ultimately, and that's a good point, Tom. I think ultimately in the event that we're not able to identify an acceptable development partner or obtain financing, or the project doesn't move forward for any reason, we can sell the properties as is, where is, with the resale restrictions in place. And to the extent to which we're not able to realize the price that we just paid for them, the Housing Trust Fund will make up the shortfall. So that I don't, those units are worth something. They may not be ultimately, because of the issues that we were discussing, worth what we're paying down the road without rectifying these problems. But we should come very close to selling it, in worst case scenario, selling it to another income eligible buyer. But we'd like to address this problem once and for all, and not leave it to a future generation to deal with.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we do have somebody from the Affordable Housing Committee that's authorized to speak on this issue on this call, correct?
Yes, the chair is on.
Vice Chair, I'm sorry. And
Vice
Cindy, I don't want to put you, I told her she wouldn't have to say anything, but she and confirmed that is her understanding of what we discussed at the Affordable.
Yeah, I want to make sure we're if we're relying on them, particularly their trust fund, that they understand that they're bearing the risk on this.
They do indeed. Cindy, I don't know if you would like to just unmute yourself and say hello.
Yes, we do understand. These conversations have been occurring, I would say, almost for a year.
Right.
And it's been part of our plan. It's gone under a lot of discussion and consideration, and we are 100% behind it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thanks.
I've got nothing further.
And just to highlight, the risk reward, while there is a risk to what, is not happening, Mark, as we talked about on the phone, the upside is that we have to fix these problems. So I think people should understand that when making these decisions, you calculate that as the risk versus the reward, and the reward side, it makes the risks worth taking, at least in my opinion.
We believe that we've prudently mitigated the risk. Obviously, there's development risk in anything you do, but we think that this is reasonable. And again, to your point, the reward and ultimately fixing this problem and adding to our affordable housing inventory does offset that.
And it allows us to really be strategic. There we are with what we do and how we move forward to address a real concern and need.
Yes.
I don't have any further questions.
Thank you, Nancy. And obviously these 2 items, 10 and 11, are associated with one another. And, we've been working on this for a long time, and Mark's done a lot of hard work on this, and it hasn't been an easy maneuvering process. But again, when I came in, I said to Mark, I really want us to get a handle on our affordable housing and have more control over how we move forward as a town. And this is really, this highlights doing exactly that, right? So these properties, were purchased a long time, were received from the federal government and the Flato administration, and now we're repurposing them and hopefully adding double the amount of our affordable units. and in a much nicer, I would say, units than they are now. And so this is just part of, and I think that's why people get a little sort of pushed back, because it is so complicated to do this type of work. And I think a lot of the stuff that Mark did in the past, you know, making sure we had this housing trust fund and all of the work that he's done over the years, I think we're starting to see some fruit, and we're going to continue on. So I'm really excited about this, and I just want to personally thank you, Mark, for all the hard work you've put in on these items. It's much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. We really appreciate all the guidance that you've given us. And if I could just add one thing, we think it's important that in this respect that we'll have control over what the development looks like. So as opposed to other affordable housing in the town where we have no control, this would be able to fit into the character of the neighborhood. And we think that's important with respect to the neighbors, the the beach community, and we really don't ever have an opportunity like this. And I just think it's, for us, it's a great opportunity. For the town, it's a great opportunity as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that, Cynthia. All right. Well, if we have no other comments on item number 10, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And I'll move to waive the reading for 11 as well then.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And so obviously we're just talking about this, and we do have bond counsel on the line. And so this is the actual funding resolution associated with the project. And I will hand it over to Mark once again and our bond counsel.
Well, again, the intent here is to issue a bond or authorize the issuance of a bond. We would intend to actually do bond anticipation notes and roll them over from year to year, subject to the requirements, and the bond counsel can go into that. But this provides us with flexibility in terms of financing. Obviously, the town can borrow at much lower rates than we can do conventionally through a conventional lender or a community development lender. And this would provide sufficient capital for us to acquire the properties that we discussed with the financing to come from the Housing Trust Fund. So the Housing Trust Fund would basically cover the interest and carrying costs and other financing costs associated with the issuance. John, I don't know if you want to say something.
Sure. This is John Staffstrom from Pullman and Conley, the town's bond counsel. We have talked with Mark and with the finance with Jared about this resolution. Although it's characterized as a 10-year bond resolution, the real plan here would be to issue short-term notes and never issue bonds for this project. We would roll the notes from year to year, hopefully a period not longer than 3 years, taking advantage of the very low interest rates on notes. The principal repayment would come at such time as the property was sold. So the real intention is to issue the notes here to fund the new purchases and to reimburse the Housing Trust Fund $295,000. The reason this is drafted as a 10-year bond is the issues you talked about at the previous resolution. We do have to have a financing mechanism in place in case the town does end up holding the property, which is no one's intent. So I think that in discussions with Mark and with Jared, everybody feels that this is a project that will be financed and refinanced by a takeout within 3 years. And the only other wrinkle I would add to this is we've added the proviso that these notes can be either taxable or tax exempt. Frankly, the interest rate in the market right now is not that different for short-term notes between taxable and tax exempt, but the town might need to issue these notes on a taxable basis if the ultimate purchaser here is going to be a private developer, would be taking advantage of sort of the short-term financing. So you will note that that we always draft your resolution so that you can use either taxable or tax exempt obligations. But in this case, there is a high likelihood that the notes would be issued on a taxable basis. Any questions?
I'm good, actually.
Yeah, me too. Thanks.
All right. All right, well, that's great. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously, and this is exciting. I can't wait to see this get going. This is really good.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
Okay. Have a good meeting. Bye.
All right, thanks, John.
Take care, John.
Our next item is item number 12, an update on the strategic plan. And obviously this has been a long time coming. The strategic planning committee worked for, I believe, 3 years, gathering data and interviewing everyone in our town, elected officials, department heads, employees, businesses, nonprofits, all different organizations and groups. And I had several meetings. Well, I had a really good meeting with them when I first came in, and then we had another subsequent meeting when they had their draft put together as part of their protocol. Then they also met with each, for the public's edification, met with each of the select woman, and went over the whole plan as they did with me, which is very comprehensive. And I'm excited to have them come to talk to us. I do want to just quickly say that I have, excuse me, recommended that the Strategic Planning Committee Executive Board be invited to the Racial Task Force meeting at some point, to some of your members, Nance. I think you and I may have even spoken about it, because the work that they did was very similar to, I think, to what the task force will be doing, the way they gathered data and information. It might be really beneficial to hear how they did that work. And their plan is so comprehensive and helpful, really, as a document for not just me as the first select woman, but for all of us as we move our community forward. So I will not speak anymore, and I will introduce our committee, the executive committee, John Wynn, and the chair, the vice chair, Jay, and Marlene, the secretary, to give us a presentation.
Great. Thanks very much, Brenda, for that great introduction. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to share my screen so that I can take us through a document. If you just bear with.
Interrupt for 1 second, John?
Certainly.
I want to give an opportunity to Becky Bennell, who asked to just kind of comment on this. And I mean, she's more than welcome to stay on through the, I think she's actually read your plan, but I wanted to give her the option to speak prior if she didn't want to stay on for the whole meeting. Becky, did you want to have an opportunity now to speak? Becky? Are you on mute? Dave Kelly, is she muted or is she allowed?
She's unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. We can.
Oh, I had gone onto the phone. The instructions said to go onto the telephone for my audio. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Did you want to just share your comments with the board and with the committee as well?
Sure, I'd be very happy to. First of all, John and the committee, I really think you guys did an awesome job. It's a very comprehensive plan, a very strong town plan, and I think it'll guide us well into the future. So I compliment you on that. My name is Becky Bunn. I live at 2005 Fairfield Beach Road, and I am also the chair of the Flood and Erosion Control Board. And so my request, as we reviewed it as a board, is that if we could think about just updating the plan a little bit, just to add more information and implications about how climate change and predicted sea level rise, particularly the more intense rain events, the potential of more intense storms will impact our town. Because, you know, whether or not you believe climate change is man-made or natural, the science does lead us to believe that it is happening. And our town is built on a floodplain with over 15% of our homes, 5 churches, 3 schools, many commercial buildings, many town buildings, and many of the historical buildings that make up the unique character of our town are at risk over time. Now, again, it's not immediate, but there are a lot of things that have just passed through the state assembly that allow us to do really effective planning for resiliency. So depending on when the next hurricane or big storm hits, if we start planning now for these long-term liabilities, the cost of resilience planning and remediation we will have already planned for some of that, because the reality is that's going to be in the millions of dollars. And if you get state and federal grants, we have to, as a town, pay 25 to 35% of that. So planning for these long-term liabilities is really critical. It also will long-term help our bond rates and insurance rates, and frankly make our town a more attractive place to live and grow a business. So that's my guidance and my request, and we stand ready as a Flood and Erosion Control Board to help you craft some of this language into the plan, whatever way you guys feel is best edited in. And that was my comment.
Thank you, Becky. I appreciate that, and I just wanted to give you that opportunity, just in case you wanted to hop off the meeting, and I wanted them to be able to hear it.
No, thank you so much.
All right, John, back over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I know that I did receive the comments from Becky, and Becky, I did read through them quickly. I need to spend some more time assessing them and evaluating how to incorporate the thoughts and suggestions you have into the strategic plan as it stands right now. Right now, I'm trying to figure out how to get my screen to share so I can walk us through the presentation material. And does everyone see that screen right now?
You did have, before. I don't see it now.
It's gone now.
You had it up while we were earlier.
Okay, bear with me 1 second. So as I am trying to, did I get that up now?
Yes.
Okay, so Jay and I are extremely pleased to have you invite us to join your meeting. Let me give a tiny bit of an overview of the material and the documents I provided ahead of time, and then I'll walk us through this presentation that is hopefully up on your screen. So the work that we're going to talk about tonight, I know you all have been briefed on, but this is a great opportunity to present some of this information to the entirety of the town, and just invite people, if they had thoughts, suggestions, ideas, to provide commentary or thoughts about it as we move forward. The material that we sent, which really represents an incredible amount of hard work from people all across the town, members of the committee, the consultants we worked with, and many, many thousands of residents that participated in this process. The work that we've done is documented in several different documents. One is a 12-page, what I would say, executive level presentation that we'll walk through today. The other documents that are included are a narrative 2-page executive summary of the strategic plan, key findings and approach. A second document is the full 120-page strategic plan that summarizes all the work that was done, presents it in a documented format with charts, graphs, exhibits, photographs, and an implementation schedule and approach. And the third document, or actually fourth document, is what I would describe as a summary of one of the key initiatives that was identified as part of the plan, what we're referring to as the SMILE initiative, which is to some extent re-envisioning aspects of the downtown area into kind of a community that would be the combination of desires of both millennial and senior residents. And we've characterized it as the senior and millennial integrated living environment. And that's what's documented in the 4 or 5 page written document also, that just summarizes some of the key observations there and the research that was done. So with that as an overview, I'll walk us through this presentation if that makes sense. Any questions before we move forward?
No, go right ahead, John.
Excellent, thank you. So
Thank you.
this plan was already presented to.
Sorry, am I still seeing a blank screen? Is everybody?
I see it. You don't see where it says the material strategic
Nothing.
plan?
It just went blank for me. Sorry to.
Nance, I think that's on possibly your end, because I'm looking at it on the broadcast feed as well, and it's up on the FairTV feed. I can see it on that screen right now.
Dave Kelly, any suggestions for me? Because I've pressed no buttons. It just stopped. It's blank.
Maybe exit and rejoin the meeting.
Okay, I'm gonna leave and then come back. Sorry.
Okay.
That sounds like the equivalent of hit the side of the TV, Dave.
It's more like unplug and plug it back in.
Yeah, reboot, right? That's my fail safe.
So I'll press on ahead. And what I will try and do is narrate what slide I'm on so that someone comes back and reviews this afterwards. They'll be able to find their way through the material. So this is page 2 of the executive PowerPoint level presentation. And basically the material we'll go through provides an update on the strategic plan status, the key recommendations and big ideas, implementation considerations, and some other observations on 2 trends and that emerged fairly late in the course of the work that we were doing, but we didn't want to overlook them. And Jay, hopefully you can jump in and provide further thoughts and narrative as we kind of move forward. And I see Nancy. Are you back now, Nancy? Or?
I'm back and it's working now. So I just logged
Excellent.
off and logged back in. Thank you.
Okay, so we're on page 3, and the key point here is, why did we go off and undertake this effort? And really, it's itemized in the 4 bullet points that are listed here. And basically, in summary, economic and fiscal situations and issues here in Connecticut have become more challenging. Societal issues, whether it be technology, worker mobility, demographics, etc., have changed, and the town's history may not be best indicative of where it needs to go in the future. Several other factors were impacting the overall competitiveness of our town as we compete with other neighboring communities to maintain residents, businesses, etc. And it was thought that a clear, analysis and consistent objectives would help the town best define and respond to those kind of challenges. Next page, page 4 of the material. There's 4 vertical silos on this page, and this just illustrates how thorough and comprehensive the process was. So if we start on the left-hand side of the page, up front, we structured aspects of the analysis, did some brainstorming, looked at strategic issues, did a strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threat assessment. We worked with the consultants to finalize and incorporate that into the work they did. The second major phase and the third phase are on the 2 next columns, and First Selectwoman Kupchak mentioned some of the extensive outreach that we did during the course of the work. And basically, the second column talks about interviews and workshops that we did, where we interviewed many different people, department heads, elected officials, boards and commissions, other stakeholders such as businesses, development people here in town, people from the university. We fed that information into constituent workshops that we held, and we held 50, 60 of the workshops for larger groups, smaller groups. To complement the insights that we gathered from there, we did a web questionnaire, and all of that material was summarized in the community outreach deliverables that we completed earlier in the project and are incorporated in the full strategic plan in one of the appendices at the back end of the document. So if someone wanted to go back and reread any of that to understand what kind of things came out of each one of those different aspects of work, then they can go back and do so. With that information, we went into some other activities, which we would call subject matter expert types of work, where we held workshops led by the consultants we were working with people with the type of understanding and knowledge in various different areas, such as economic development, land use, variety of other topics, senior needs and senior center activities, a variety of different things like that. That work is documented in the subject matter expert deliverables that we completed. Those also are in the latter part of the strategic plan. But basically, the bottom part of that right-hand column describes the key work that was summarized, and that would be the subject matter expert. HLA is the consulting firm that we worked with, Housel Levine Associates. Input from the Strategic Planning Committee and Board of Selectmen discussions as we gathered that feedback from various quarterly presentations that the committee made to the Board of Selectmen during the course of this entire project. So that's kind of in a nutshell, on one page, everything that we did related to the project. What did we find out? So the data gathering work, I'm on page 5 now, and I'll stop and pause for 1 second and just make sure everyone's still with me. I haven't lost everyone, have I?
No.
Still here.
Okay, excellent. So this page 5, the left-hand side of the page talks about the research and analysis, stakeholder interviews, all the way down to the consulting analysis. That helped us develop the various different viewpoints that we kind of, ascertained during the course of the project and documented in our materials. We had the interim deliverables, and that pushed over into the ultimate strategic plan that we have. And as we note at the bottom of this section, extensive community feedback has not been, it's been gathered at different points, but it hasn't been incorporated in the actual strategic plan document that we have right now. Moving on to page 6, the key findings that we have from, well, first off, the left-hand side, the strategic plan document, the 120-page document, has an executive summary, call to action, plan introduction, community context, critical success factors, implementation matrix, and the appendices that I previously described. The key areas of findings that we have that we'll talk about a little bit more detail in a minute fall into 5 key areas: town governance and administration, fiscal stewardship, economic development and land management, collaborative solutions with regional partners, and the last one relates to a resilient and connected community. Those are the key strategy areas. There were several other, what we characterize as big ideas that came out of this work. The reason why they're big ideas is they don't easily fall into any one of those other strategy areas. They cut across multiple of them. So one of them has to do with waterfront development. Second is the item that I described earlier when I first started to talk with you, a comprehensive multi-generation downtown development. And the third is walkability zones in various parts of town. Each of these all of this is described in the executive summary in a very succinct fashion, and then in much more detail in the full plan. So the next page, which page 7, is a table that unbundles those 5 key areas of strategy into key underlying components. And I'll just pick one or so from each one of them. The first one, town governance and administration. The key recommendation there is to transition from the Selectmen RTM structure to one of a town council, town manager, or a town council, town mayor type of structure. It also involves improving management and execution of all town departments, leveraging technology, that sort of thing. The next key area deals with sound fiscal stewardship, deals with long-term budgeting rather than trying to do it year to year, cross-departmental execution, analyze how to increase revenues and use market-based trends and metric goals to better monitor and try and track and capture revenue. Economic development, really is a key area, and it's one that's is widely recognized basically in every town across the Connecticut coastline. Economic development needs to be focused, tracked execution, metric-based goals. It needs to better leverage the land, which is the key asset the town has, and better utilize underutilized land parcels to get a financial return from them. The next area, collaborative solutions with regional partners, help take steps to better cross-town manage how the school district executes in coordination with the town and using financial metrics, identify metrics for curriculum innovation, try and find ways to reduce the dependence on taxes for education requirements. And then other outside of education areas deal with leveraging shared services to more cost effectively provide services. You can see articles in the paper every week on each of these different topics about cross-town effective execution and cross-district execution and better managing the resources that we apply to providing the services that our residents need. The last item here is about how to partner better with the universities for the benefit of the town, the universities, community education, and our residents. And the last one deals with resilient and connected community, talking about the steps we need to do to kind of address a lot of the climate change, coastline management issues, secondarily transportation options, which getting around town has become a challenge to some degree. Each of these points are further described in the strategic plan. So I'll stop and pause for 1 second before I push on to the next page to see if anyone had any questions. And again, make sure I still have everyone.
We're here.
Okay.
Yeah, John, you have me. Thank you for, first of all, I just want to say thank you for all the hard effort to you and the committee. I know it's been a long, for lack of a better word, slog, and literally hundreds of meetings. So just my appreciation at bringing this process this far to date.
Well, thank you. And Jay and I describe it as a interesting and enriching interaction with the town. Maybe not so much of a slog, but there were elements where we were dealing with, some of the challenges the town had faced in the course of the time we had this, whether it be fill pile issues, change in administration, recently COVID types of issues. And it's just, there wasn't like one easy thing to challenge. We just had multiple roadblocks thrown up, but we persevered, and I think we got to a really good place. So
yeah.
Let me push on page 8, which kind of describes the 3 big ideas that we had. So the first one, waterfront development. It's a key asset of the town, our waterfront. You run into people from other communities and they ask the question, why do you guys not leverage your waterfront differently? Why do you not have restaurants and entertainment or other types of venues in the beach areas that you have? Because it's an underutilized resource. So we have some ideas on how to possibly unlock the value in the waterfront. So that's what we described there. The comprehensive multi-generational development kind of works from a topic or an idea that was circulating around town regarding a senior-friendly community. But we recognize that from a lot of the other work that was going on here in town, whether it be POCD work or if it was related to transit-oriented development, the needs and wants of the millennials are one end of a demographic bookcase, and the seniors are a second end. And the needs of them, remarkably, are relatively similar as far as, lifestyle and live, work, play, or live, be involved, enjoy, smaller footprint type of living arrangements. And it also could leverage the key area of town that possibly is underutilized, which, the area around downtown and the train station, and doing something different there to unlock the value of that key parcel of land that the town has. That's the 4 or 5 page document that tries to describe that in a little bit more detail and the reasons why it might make sense and what are some of the considerations that would need to be thoughtfully analyzed further to make that come to fruition. The third item here deals with kind of walkability zones and to be able to get access to the types of services and commercial things that people that live in the community would want without having to get in their car and come downtown and clog up the streets and everything, to have a little bit more spread out of the commercial activity in town. And strangely enough, in the course of our work and our feedback, one of the comments that frequently was mentioned was, why is no one invest in other parts of the town so we can get what we want? It's all centered in one area, so we should spread out some of that. So this is to try and respond to that multiple challenges of transportation, economic availability of businesses, and could unlock some real value. So in the bottom part of the page, just, I think I've already mentioned why, these are big ideas and not necessarily in one of the 5 categories of the strategic areas. So where do we kind of?
And John?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The only thing I was going to add is one of the benefits of having a consultant involved, especially a consultant that both has regional and national expertise and knowledge. We did a sanity check to see in all these areas, not just the big ideas, but the 5 focus areas as well. Are we doing anything radical, or is it, taking a lot of risk? And the feedback that we got from HLA is, especially the big ideas, are pretty consistent trends that they see actually across the country, that towns are thinking about that have those kinds of assets and issues are things that they're all doing. So the only thing I wanted to add is that the 5 focus areas, and especially those 3 big ideas, are actually pretty mainstream. So it ought to be able to be, and they were things that the people in the town actually asked for. So I just wanted to make sure that you had that view of all of it, is that it's pretty mainstream and consistent with what the feedback that we got from the folks in the town in terms of what they wanted. So
and by the way, thank you for that context. I have no doubt that each of these items are mainstream, and exactly. It'll be interesting to see now with what's going on with New York City and transit, and how that whole downtown and around the train station, and how that develops, right? And what gets changed in that thought process over the next year or so as we come out of COVID. But clearly there's an opportunity there, and clearly I couldn't agree more on the waterfront, and having a comprehensive plan there, I think, is critical. So I agree.
Yep. Thank you both for those comments. And it's not just as Jay was describing HLA, because the town, I've sat in on pretty much most of the town planning meetings that have gone on where we've used outside consultants, and there were 2 or 3 projects that went on, and the topic of millennials and land use and how to better cultivate economic development, those whole series of topics have come up in each of the different pieces of work that each of the different consulting firms the town has utilized has come up. So anyway, press on. I know you guys have a hard stop, so I want to be entirely respectful of your schedules.
Absolutely.
Okay, so page 9 talks about the steps related to a review of the big ideas. This is specifically related to the big ideas and the implementation steps to get started on to try and move this forward. And it's basically, a forcing function of using a calendar to help get the tasks identified and begin to execute on them. So this review with you all, I know it's a busy time of year, but it's part of, one of the sets of activities here where we review it with the board in its entirety, although it's been reviewed with each of you individually already, and allow you the thought time to figure out how you would like to try and, validate that you want to do this and move it forward as far as the activities that people need to be focused on. Page 10. Two key parts of the page. The first is implementation considerations, which is the top set of bullets. And basically, we have a whole lot of implementation actions.
It didn't, hey, John, it didn't move forward. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Just move forward.
Yep. There are a whole bunch of implementation considerations that we've identified in the plan. And I know from watching and listening to town meetings and reading and talking to people, a lot of these are already underway. Brenda, you and your team are, I know and I hear that a lot of steps, have already been started on these. I'd like to say, I'm really glad that you took our advice and you're following it. I think probably a lot of it is you recognize some of the needs and changes and probably had plans already, underway when you heard some of the feedback from our strategic plan. But I know a lot of things are already underway. There are a lot of things documented in this plan that, can be accomplished. It cuts across many parts of the town. Moving things forward in a silo fashion may not be the best. You can do it, but it needs to be coordinated. And how you go about implementing these actions really is varied. So, we would want to talk about that further. The key thing is the office of the first select person and the board of selectmen are the, kind of initiators of this effort, and I think should continue to control how things unfold from this point. Last key thing is tackling everything at once would likely present problems. Trying to do too much all at once is a challenge. So the priority to task should be managed based upon the impact, the capacity to change, the amount of disruption with the highest impact. We've given you some thoughts to consider as far as what to go off and tackle. The bottom part of the page really were kind of two of the topics I briefly mentioned earlier, which were, during the course of this, a couple of the challenges that, have made following through and completing this, a little bit of a challenge. The COVID-19 and its related difficulties, and the topic of social justice and its impact on our town and our state and the nation and worldwide, and in all actuality, is something that, we wanted to recognize. We know the town has steps through the committee that Nancy participates with, and I'd be happy to speak with them in any way, shape, or form. But the town has a focus on that activity already, and these both came up after we were pretty much done with our work and in the process of summarizing and crafting and editing the plan, that sort of thing. But neither trend or neither topic indicates any reason why anything we've said in the plan didn't make sense. So we found that very comforting to recognize that key last point. Neither trend really requires a redirection of the strategic recommendations that are contained in this material. So I'll move on to the next page, page 11. A couple of final thoughts. What we heard in the beginning was be bold and do not be bounded by political considerations, no sacred cows. We should present firm recommendations, and we need to consider trade-offs, and we might need to consider how to adjust services and restructure as part of our recommendations. Our belief, and I believe this is the belief of the full committee and many of the people who we've received feedback from, is the town's ready for change, and it's convinced the status quo won't allow us to be successful. We need to do things differently to prosper. And we have our call of action. It's documented here. And we'd like to move forward the commitment to act and do something with this plan, and then adjust and respond to changes as they arise. Some last steps on this last page 12 is to where do we go from here? And I think we're in the course of doing this now, providing the presentation to the full board, and get feedback, and then publish the final plan, and then, support the implementation as things go forward. So with that, I'll stop talking.
Can I, before you stop,
Thank
John,
you. John,
can
I appreciate you walking us through this. And I know each of us had the full presentation, and there was a lot of dialogue, I would assume, between yourself and each of the select people when they were getting the presentation. But I just want to thank you again for doing this. Hopefully it'll be helpful for the public to see it. And so now what I'm going to do you want to stop sharing your screen and then we can open it up? I'll open it up to the board for additional questions. So Nancy?
Yeah, and I want to echo the thanks because I've actually really, one, you've done a tremendous amount of work, you and the team and Jay and Marlena. We've had great opportunities going back now a couple of years to talk about this. And I know how much hard work has gone into this, and I've enjoyed our discussions. And something that, a few things that stick out, and most of my comments are really just like food for thought as you're moving forward. I love when you say no sacred cows, because I think everything should be on the table. We should be able to talk about things, not retreat into our corners with pitchforks, but really listen to each other as these ideas come forward. I'm really intrigued about the idea about changing the structure. And I don't want to make anybody crazy when I say this, but really thinking about the structure of how our RTM runs and the efficiencies of that. And that's something I'd be curious to explore further. And I've said that from the beginning. Does a 40-person body make the most sense the way it is structured? I don't know. And again, I refer back to this idea of no sacred cows. So if people are listening and hear what I'm saying, I hope they'll just take that in as something that I think is ripe for discussion. One thing about the project, what I still would love to get my head around is who we are as a town. What's our mission statement, and everything that we do and all the decisions we make, if we run it through that lens of, does this meet the needs of who we are? And I think that could take years if we all sort of dove into it, and I'm not looking for that kind of thing, but coming to terms with what it is and where we are as a town and who we want to be would be a discussion I'd be interested in having. Running this through the verticals of, and you alluded to it, equity and justice, the arts, the environment. I like the idea of concentric circles, how Fairfield kind of at the center, but all the tangents of how we look at all the decisions we're making through those lenses, and also what is fiscally possible. And I would say retaining university students, and you talked about millennials. So that's, again, an area where I think we are ripe to flesh out. And again, Fairfield is a cultural destination. I think it's something that I've talked a lot about with Mark Barnhart, but we have so many incredible resources here. And I would love not only the waterfront, but Fairfield as an arts destination, what we can do with the universities. And one comment I would say, and then I'll turn this over, 2 comments. The word trend, I just ask you to look at that, because I would hate, it may be misinterpreted, this idea of social justice as a trend or the environment as a trend. I'm not being critical, just really asking you to look at that word choice, because I do think that moving forward, and I understand what you're saying, so I'm not shooting you down on that front. I'm just asking you to look at it as a word choice. And then finally, just a procedural question. This is such a thorough document. It is so thoughtful. You've done incredible work. Did you have a budget for any of this, or has this all been done purely with volunteer hours, with volunteer time, value in kind? Curious, just procedurally.
Let me try.
So sorry, that was a lot. That was a run-on sentence.
Well, I took some notes, and hopefully I'll be able to address the points. And I turned my video off because my camera is acting funny, and I don't want it to be a distraction. So, mission statement. I believe in the plan there is a vision articulation. Possibly that would have some of the details that you're describing, and we can kind of, unbundle that or talk about that further. And I know many people have vision, mission, goal sort of discussion and whatever. It can get very confusing, but I think a lot of what you're looking for a mission statement might be in that vision area. The point of that trend.
Sorry, if I could, just to clarify, it's really parsing that out. Like, the log line, if you will, like Fairfield is choice one or whatever it becomes. And I stole that from someone, but that singular sort of idea that all things go under, and again, just a suggestion, because it is all there in the vision, but parsing it out is what I just wanted to clarify. Sorry.
Well, actually, I think you're saying not to parse it out, but to summarize it. And my walk around statement about the town from everything I've learned from this work is Fairfield has it all. We have the best market basket of everything that you could possibly order to a business or a resident. We have beautiful waterfronts. We have a great education system. Our tax burden is a challenge at times, but manageable. Our property values better than any town between here and the New York state line on the coast. So my statement is Fairfield has it all. And I say that some people agree with me, some people, don't, but that's the way I would describe it. The topic of trend, I'll break out my thesaurus and see if we can come up with a word that better expresses it. I recognize the point that you're making about it's not a trend. It's something that's longer lasting and is very important. And I certainly appreciate that. Your third point I was going to comment on was something that you said after trend, but maybe I covered it already.
The couple of things that I talked about, arts, being an arts destination and Fairfield University, and doing things to like really bust that out. And then those were sort of some of the, and the financial.
Asked about funding too.
Oh, and the procedural, yeah. And finally the procedural, the funding budget, any of that.
Yes, Brenda, thank you. That was the third part, the funding question. We were funded for the initial work with the consultants. It was a challenge and we had some bumps and whatever along the way. We've exhausted the funding for the initial plan. The consultants we're working with, have agreed that they're going to, we got to a point where we are now, although we overran the budget, they agreed to finish it within the fixed fee arrangement that we had with them. But we were funded for the consultant. We're not at this point funded for follow-on consulting support. And truthfully, a lot of the work that was done and accomplished here was done by the typical town structure of volunteers with knowledge and experience serving on a town board or committee. So that's really how we got to what I think is the place where we are now, which is pretty good.
It's a great place. You've done so much work. And again, I really do appreciate how much volunteer time has gone into this. Was that initial funding something that went through the Board of Selectmen back in the day when you did it? And can you share that amount?
Yes. It went through all the town bodies. This actually started with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. John, I don't remember the specific amount, though. I think it was around $150,000 to start, was it not?
It was south of 100, not by much.
Okay.
Okay. And thank you. And by the way, I've sent you a side email and taking everybody up. I have shared a lot of what we have talked about in the past, but I did email you with our next meeting dates for the task force, the Racial Equity and Justice Task Force, to invite you to come in and share some of your thoughts. So you'll have an email in your inbox. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
And hey, Nancy, there's only one thing I wanted to react to, and that was your comment about restructuring the governance of the town. A lot of people did think we were taking aim at the RTM because that was the organization you mentioned. And I want to make sure for everybody that's going to listen to this, that we evaluated the entire governance structure of the town. That includes all government bodies. So Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and the RTM. We actually had somebody from the universities come in and consult, who does this for a living, or a PhD in municipal government. And they participated as one of the SMEs and were instrumental in making sure that we came back to you with a very, very firm recommendation that includes a restructuring of the entire governance model for the town of Fairfield. We're not targeting any one body.
And I said the RTM, but
make sure that came across.
And I appreciate that. I also use that example, but I was really talking about not looking at the holistic conversation about the structure a sacred cow. I said RTM, but I by no means am singling them out either. But
so I'll jump in and just, I mean that topic is potentially such a controversial one. Yet again, if you read and listen to what takes place here in Connecticut, there's a town up the coast from us that changed from the RTM selectmen structure to the town council, town manager structure, did it within the past 18 months because they recognized that they weren't effective at managing the risks and challenges of their town as their budgets and their activities got more complex and more difficult to manage. And they said, you guys are crazy if you don't consider this. The one key town in Connecticut that we are most frequently compared to, West Hartford, because of our demographics, our size, moved to this structure 25 years ago. So it's just, you know, there's some data points, and we could share a lot more detail than what we've talked about now, or even what's in the plan to support that thought and idea.
It's Tom, if I might. First of all, I'll echo the thanks once again for all the work that went into this. Also, want to thank the first select woman and her administration. And John, you're absolutely correct. There's a lot of work that's been done to date by that administration, advancing a bunch of items, particularly on the economic development front and the affordable housing front. So kudos to them for that. I think that's greatly appreciated. The thing that comes to mind now as I listen to this, and this won't surprise you because in our private discussions and presentations that you've given to me over the course of the last number of years, I've always talked about being action oriented, the call to action, and the key here being execution. And for this not to be a plan like so many other plans that sit on a shelf and don't get acted upon. With that in mind, one first question on your last slide, you had really gone out and laid out a bunch of different steps where essentially, hey, now we have a draft. We're going to bring this back before we're going to put this on the website. We're going to have more dialogue. We're going to have more discussion, and then we're going to issue a final report. What's the timing on that?
Well, since residents would have probably the best opportunity from, you know, this meeting, I would say we could put a calendar, as I mentioned earlier, managing it by the calendar to gather whatever feedback might be provided within 30 days and update the plan and finalize it. I haven't really thought about specific schedules related to that, but we can certainly do something to try and get the plan to what we call the final status right now.
See, I think I would encourage something. I'm not going to encourage the 30 days. I would encourage a detailed calendar on this because, I mean, look, you have held 60 so meetings, subject matter expert groups. This has been what, 2.5, 3 years in the making. It's really, it's the action time is now. And I'll say that for several different reasons. Number one, we are hitting an inflection point relative to financial issues facing the town. We're hitting an inflection point with state issues. We're hitting an inflection point with the New York City issues, which could impact, you know, Fairfield County, certainly lower Fairfield County. And I think the time for action, the call to action is sooner rather than later. And I would like to get us on to the execution phase, which really has to include, to your comments earlier, the prioritization phase, because we'll fail miserably if we try to do everything at once. You'll have a bunch of 60% stuff completed, or stuff 60% completed, as opposed to knocking things down one after the other. And I think that's where we need to get to. I think you're right to look at town government. I appreciate you bringing that up. I would set that almost to the side a little bit, not in terms of timing, but in terms of putting it to the side as a discussion point so that it doesn't waylay the opportunities on the other sides, whether it be the reimagining the downtown or some of the more commercial areas of town and reimagining the waterfront area, because those represent our opportunities to move the town forward. I like the comment you made, Fairfield has it all. I think that I would agree with that comment. The question I have is how do we prioritize it and how do we leverage it? And those are the challenge and the opportunity that's before us. And I think we need to execute upon it, or else we're going to be having this same discussion in another year, year and a half, 2 years about what our opportunities are. And gee, we should really do this or really do that. And I don't think anything I'm saying right now is a surprise to you or your colleagues on the committee that have met with me. But I think the call to action is critical in my mind. So I thank you.
Those are great thoughts. One quick response, and I think you're exactly right. And I think it's documented in one of the slides that we received immense amount of feedback all through the course of the project from town members, boards and commissions, committee members. We've incorporated that into the plan. And I think major rework on any aspect of the plan that we have documented right now, it's really going to be wording changes or things like that. I think we have incorporated the feedback on so many different items already through the work that we've done and shared and presented. So, I think that the path to get this final, I almost would like to say we could change a few words and call it final now and try and start to execute on it. But
And look, the devil's going to be in the details, and this isn't going to be easy. And as things start to be addressed, there's going to be various groups or constituencies in town that are displeased or have concerns. Anytime you have 62,000 customers or what have you, and you need to make tough choices, there's going to be challenges to those tough choices. But we need to move forward. We can't continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. And the first select woman challenged, and I've been challenging actually for a long time, our education system to look at structural change. And I think it's only incumbent that we do the same as it relates to the strategic plan in the overall town. And once again, I'd like to thank your members as well as the community at large for the time and effort and thoughtfulness that have gone into this to date. So
Jay, do you have any thoughts, related to some of the points that we were discussing?
No, I always like a schedule for signature. So once the plan is signed, right, it becomes a lot easier to have those conversations about the trade-offs. Because then I don't want to oversimplify this, but once the plan is signed, once you all vote on it, and this is the path we're going on, it becomes the lightning rod when issues come forward. Is it consistent with the plan?
So,
is that something that is strategic? And if it's not, if it isn't consistent with the strategy of the town, then by definition it's counter-strategic and it doesn't get done.
Yeah, sorry, Jay, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go
ahead, Tom. To your point, though, I think at the same time we're doing that and putting the timeline together, what's also critical is how do we manage the next step? Like bringing this from the theoretical or the strategic phase down to the boots on the ground, how do we execute? That's going to be the challenge, right? Is really, does this go into working groups? Does this go, who quarterbacks this on a day-to-day basis? Obviously, the first select woman has ultimate responsibility. We have oversight responsibility, but who on the ground is going to push that? Those are the things that we've got to start really hashing out in order to execute on something like this.
Agreed. Transition planning, transitioning from planning to implementation is a key item. You can't overstate how important that is.
Yes, agreed. And thank you.
So Jay and I, in our professional careers, have seen many different aspects of implementation. And I think Jay and I both agree that a board level management involved execution and implementation is the key to success. Trying to do it through a board or committee or somebody else never really achieves the best success results. So, I'm going to, go back to my high school and college track days of, we ran the race. We have the baton in our hand, and we're bringing it back to pass the baton to the board, the first select woman and the board, to then pick up the implementation work. And Jay and I will support that in whatever fashion that we can. But trying to do this just through another committee, I think, would be sub-optimizing the work that's been done and the overall objective and achievements that might occur.
So Thank you for, well, first, thank you for the presentation again to all of us, and I appreciate my colleagues' feedback. I echo, you've done tremendous work. I admire can I say this, the hell out of all of you for really your dedication. I mean, real dedication. And the document, as I've said to you privately, is amazing. I mean, you've put a real lot of work into it, and as you know, I've been pushing along a lot of change around here. Not always welcomed, but I think change is yes, can be hard, but I think it's also important. And ever since we met, I carry around this charter revision document that I have on my desk at all times, and it's actually a lot harder than the average citizen realizes. But I do think that it is necessary. Not just because I'm in this position. I've learned a tremendous amount doing this work for the last 16 months. It's, you know, how you both shared with me, you know, towns our size, you know, over 60,000. I think we could even hit 70,000, you know, over the period of time with all the development. And I mean, we are a big, small town. And, you know, the structure of our government, and this isn't, as Nancy was saying, this isn't a negative comment about any person, but to have to go through the same process, the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, the RTM, really takes a tremendous amount of time away from the actual doing of the town's business. So I think it's, and I've said this to you both, to the executive committee, it's something we should be seriously looking at, and not because of me or any one person who's serving in office right now, but for the future of our town, so that we can grow and be more efficient. So I've been talking a lot about this. It's not as easy as can be. You know, charter revision is an actually long process, but I am very interested in working on it. I've been speaking to the town attorney about it when I have a free minute, which isn't ever really all that much, because it seems like I'm at board meetings talking about the budget every second. But luckily the budget passed last night, so I can take that little thing off the checklist. So I don't know. I guess we would have to talk about it a little bit more about how I know you were talking, John, and you guys were talking about coming back to us, we adopt the plan, but then I think there has to be a strategic sort of what are we grabbing at? Like, what parts are we, you know, I know it's zoning and you've worked with all the different departments, but I think we have to kind of look at a blueprint or talk a little bit more, and then I guess it's incumbent upon myself to have to put forth some actual items after we do approve the document, some actual actionable items. And so that's something I'm going to have to take some time to think about, put on the agenda. But I will speak to my colleagues. I would love your input, both of you. You know, if you share some ideas you might have, because, you know, you're right. We can't get there unless we start actually, like Tom said, time for action is now, right?
Right. Well, just let me jump in. Allow me to jump in and maybe just provide an initial thought or two on that. One is the Strategic Plan Committee is an advisory committee of the town, reporting to the Board of First Select Person and the Board of Selectmen. That's who granted us our charter. That's whose, you know, auspices we operate under. As far as implementation activities, I don't think that needs to be done in a town board and commission type of structure. I think it's, you know, incumbent upon the individuals that are running the town, office of the First Select Person, to take on responsibility for, you know, commissioning people in the town to focus on this, whether they be department heads, members of your staff, pulling in members of boards and commissions to consult in an advisory role in various different ways, would be the way that I would probably try and structure it to approach it. So that's just kind of an initial thought. So we're advising turning it back over and allow the administration to take on the challenge in the manner in which they think it can best be accomplished with the resources they have. And if someone said, oh, there's a pot of money sitting around, go hire consultants to do it, that's an approach to do it. It's not, I spent my career doing that for many different types of companies. It works really well sometimes. The resources to do that are not always there, so you have to do it with the resources between, town department heads and staff and people from the community that have expertise and knowledge working, but outside of kind of a board and committee, which encumbers the process with some difficulties that might be a challenge. Just my 2 cents.
No, I appreciate
John?
that.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Or it's a combination of the above. So the point being that when you go from planning to actually execution, those are quite often, different types of resources, simply because the resources that are going to be in implementation are the ones that actually have to, do the work, execute on those tasks. And so they have to be resources that you're able to direct execution activities to. But let's give it some thought, John, and come back to you with with a pretty firm recommendation on how to go from planning to implementation.
I appreciate that, and I want to just be cognizant that we have about 15 minutes left, and we do have one other item, and then I just have a couple of announcements to make. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, before you guys go, this is Tom. I'd be willing, I have a fair amount of experience in similar circumstances as you gentlemen in the corporate world, and I would be happy to have a discussion with you about a transition plan here and kind of share some experiences I've had, both governmental as well as in my professional career that might be of value. So.
And I'm always happy to talk to you or anyone from your committee. So please include me in that as well.
Yes, we certainly will. And, we've made the open offer to come in and meet with any of you at any time to talk about any aspect of this in more detail. We'd love to do it over coffee or in the office, however.
Great.
So I'm going to go back on mute so you all can accomplish the rest of your afternoon's activities within your time frame.
Thank you.
And thank you again, really, John and Jay. I can't really say enough about how much hard work you did. It's so appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So our next item, I think we might actually make our deadline. This is amazing. Great job. Our next item is item number 13, to consider and act upon the tax refunds as recommended by the tax collector in the amount of $19,737.01. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And I just want to give we don't have the executive session, as Attorney Baldwin said. I just want to give a quick little update on a couple of items. Obviously, I put a lot of this in my newsletter, but we did receive the new guidelines from the state. Obviously, everyone is pretty aware of them. There's been a ton of information out there. But I just want to note that in addition to the sector rules, which we are following, I continue to work with our town's emergency management team and our departments to plan for Fairfield's safe reopening. And I am working with our emergency management director and our IT director to work to formulate a plan to incorporate what we've learned over this past year about virtual meetings and modernizing our meeting structure, right? So what we're trying to do, and I met with both of them, we had a nice long meeting talking about outfitting some rooms when we do finally go back to in-person meetings. We're not quite there yet, but when we do, I want to be able to allow not just members, but also our public to have the opportunity to be included virtually if they choose to do that. So we're looking at a few spaces. We're looking at the fire training school, which actually has a lot of good technology there, where our planning and zoning could have their meetings there because of the outfitting. We're also looking at adding some technology improvements to the Board of Ed office space for the Board of Finance and the Board of Ed, so that members and public could attend virtually and in person, whichever they choose. And I have the town attorney working, and I know that the state delegation and there's legislation currently being considered to expand the allowment of these virtual meetings for towns, because a lot of towns are concerned about letting the public back into their schools before school is over. So there's all of these items. We're also looking at outfitting potentially our first floor conference room here in the Independence Hall. And even though it's almost like a room of horror over second floor, the old town hall, but trying to, it's big, but to try to see if we can outfit it to allow for virtual, with the WebEx, the screen and all of that. So, and working to see if we can get our secretaries to give them a little bump maybe in salary to be able to run a WebEx meeting, or if we have to bring someone in. So there's a lot of moving parts, but I just want to give you that update when we are trying for some of the big boards, and then we'll work our way through.
Madam First Selectwoman, I'd just like to say that thank you for all those efforts. Thank you for the update. And I completely support efforts to make these meetings both be able to be virtual and in person. When I was on the Board of Finance, we used to get a fair amount of comments from the public, particularly our senior citizens who did not want to come out at night and drive at night. Mm-hmm. And I think the ability to be able to dial in and either comment, partake, or even some instances where people have business travel that serve on our boards and would still like to partake in the meetings from their remote locations. I think in this 21st century, it is absolutely the right move. So I completely support these efforts. So thank you.
No, I appreciate that. And I know it's tricky, with the rules and the rules that regulate and all of that. So that's why I know that the legislature is trying to expand a bit, but
yep.
And the attorney Baldwin's looking into the legality of these sorts of things, voting remotely and things. But I mean, it's been a horrible year for all of us as a community, as a country. But hopefully we can learn something from this horrible experience that, maybe it's something, innovative that we actually, like the strategic planning committee, we do something a little different.
Yeah,
so
I will say it's funny that, yeah, I do find it a little funny if the state has any issues with this, only because I serve on the board of the Connecticut Green Bank, a state-run agency, and we've been doing virtual meetings well before COVID, right? Because they're located at one end of the state. It's a 3-hour commute to get, there and back. And we've been doing virtual meetings for many, many years. So I find it surprising that if there'd be an issue.
Well, I hope not.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to add too that with this great service for people and making things accessible through technology, which I fully support, it does come with its challenges, as we saw on the Racial Equity and Justice Task Force, where we were, Zoom bombed. And I spent some time talking to Dave Kelly, and I want to thank you for that time.
Sure.
Unfortunately, you can't account for bad behavior. And
right.
Sometimes making those protections are hard, but it's something that I know the police pays attention to, and the IT department. And Dave, certainly thank you for taking it as seriously as you do. I wish there was a fix, but unfortunately, there are just people who are going to behave badly, and that's something we have to think about. But it certainly shouldn't stop us from moving forward in a way where we can still be inclusive and open. And certainly in the case of the Racial Equity and Justice Task Force, me and the co-chair of that particular task force feel strongly that we still maintain an open platform and forum for people. So I just wanted to comment, because it's not perfect, but it's what we've got. And I do think that more good than bad comes from being able to be open and to provide the technology for people. And that, we're lucky that the police department and our IT department are so, they're on it. So, and helping us find ways that we can maintain that openness across all departments and commissions, et cetera. So.
Well, we're going to try really hard to make sure, to see if we can make this work. And again, Attorney Baldwin will check all the, protocols and make sure we're following rules, because we want to make sure we're doing that. But I think it would be really great for our community, and have that opportunity to do that. And I just want to publicly say, this is the first time we've met since what happened. And I know we've spoken about it, Nancy, and I've spoke to some members of the task force and also to Gina. And I just want to publicly say that I'm so incredibly disturbed by what happened. And it's despicable and disgusting. And I'm sorry that you and your committee task force had to even be subjected to it. And just know that I and this community stand in support of you and the committee, and I stand ready to make sure that you have a secure meeting space and that you're protected as much as we can protect you.
Brenda,
Thank you
this
for
is
that. Yeah.
this is Jim Baldwin. I mean, if you want me to just give you a 10-second update, there are several bills in the legislature right now which are addressing this. And to Tom's point, remote meetings are currently available and will be available under the current FOI guidelines. So it's very doable one way or the other going forward.
Okay. That's great.
Thank you, Jim. And I just want to echo what the first select woman said to Nancy, and more so, Nancy, kudos to your board, because I thought that they conducted themselves in a very difficult situation quite well. And that showed great character on their part in doing that. And I just want to commend all of them and yourself for the way that a difficult situation was managed. And look, knuckleheads are going to be knuckleheads, and you can't always prevent it. You can't always prevent how other people act, but you can control your own actions. And I thought that your board showed themselves very well on that. And I think that they made a difficult situation much better by their actions. So
Thank you both, and Brenda, thank you for your swift action, and thank you publicly to Chief Calamaris and his team, incredible detectives who he works with. I agree. I mean, this task force is made up of some incredible individuals, and I would say that the focus has become not on the perpetrator and the person who just did behave with such disgust and hate, but really in the actions afterwards, in the way this group has been strong. I really think that I agree, Tom. It showed great character and strength on their part. So thank you for that, and I will certainly pass that along at our meeting at 6 o'clock.
And that includes you too, Nancy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So I just want to quickly, two quick things. In addition to that emergency management planning that we're doing, I want to announce, I did in the newsletter, but I don't think everybody saw it. We are having the Memorial Day Parade. We are planning a safe Memorial Day Parade, and I look forward to marching with the two of you. And we are having a fireworks display, July 3rd. So all those details will be shared as we get around to that. And just quick, the Tree of Hope is lit for the month of May for Fairfield Cares Community Coalition. I know most of you both are. Focuses on preventing substance abuse, misuse, fostering social and emotional wellness, resilience among youth and young adults and families. So that's the month of May for Fairfield Cares. So if you have a chance to go by, you'll see it lit up for the month of May to recognize that nonprofit's work. And oh my God, it is 4:56. Look at us. Okay.
I want to recognize Ryan Noor and Kristen McCarthy-Vahey and the whole team at Fairfield Cares. They're really incredible. It's certainly worthy of a tree and lights and more. So
Absolutely.
Thank you. And bravo on the parade and the fireworks.
I know.
Bringing much joy.
I know. I was a little nervous about it, but hopefully it'll come off well, and we'll have a nice normal holiday. 2 holidays.
Let's hope.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Do I get to make a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
There it is. Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good
All
one.
right. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Okay.